So my dear friend Alex wrote me and said we were going to do a thing and had to be about a thing, and we had to kick around ideas, and so somehow we landed on Real Quiet, which was a thoroughbred horse in the 90s that almost won the Triple Crown. And I have no idea how we got there. Before Real Quiet was Real Quiet, there was no Real Quiet. And thus, Real Quiet was foaled in Ocala, Florida. Real Quiet was thusly nicknamed the Fish due to his narrow frame. Regardless of time or circumstance, we are talking about Real Quiet as he is now and as he was then. There could be no confusion about this, no ambiguity. Real Quiet has always been Real Quiet, from the day he was born until the day he dies, and he might never die. Never lose the battle of life, not our Real Quiet. Perish the thought, and God forbid. Because there is no Real Quiet without Real Quiet, who is made from better stuff than that, better stuff than mortal men and women, the earth and sky, the hopes and dreams, the turf and clay. There is no fish nicknamed Real Quiet, not anywhere in the world, because how could there be? Real Quiet lost the Belmont Stakes by 4 inches, the smallest margin in history, and so what does that tell you about the man? One presumes there are plenty of fish, schools of fish, universities even, that are 4 inches, and what they have lost is unspeakable. The day is long and the night is longer, and there is only our Real Quiet. Time is short and the evening sun sets itself down into the West Country, and there is our only Real Quiet. People harvest wheat and bake bread and fashion rope from tree bark, and after all of this, Real Quiet is Real Quiet. God saved the foundation and Real Quiet, because without Real Quiet, there is no foundation. Real Quiet was neither real nor quiet. Let us praise his name, because his name is Real Quiet and our name is Real Quiet, so that Real Quiet is us and we are him. As a boy, Real Quiet dreamed of being a soldier and fighting overseas in a great world war. He wanted one day to be a hero. He saw himself as Sergeant York, as Audie Murphy. He imagined himself in a trench, dug in, maintaining position until his relief came, which never did. He saw himself as Joan of Arc at the Battle of New Orleans, alongside Major General Andrew Jackson. They fired their guns, but the British kept a-comin'. Then Real Quiet was taken prisoner, then tied to the stake. Years later, Real Quiet was discharged and sent stateside. He got off the plane to find no one waiting for him on the tarmac. Real Quiet worked a series of dead-end jobs: janitor, crossing guard, U.S. Senator. Real Quiet considered a life in the aluminum siding business. He considered re-enlisting. Real Quiet got rained on with his own .38. And nobody flinched down by the arcade, and the marquees weren't weeping, and the furniture was bargains galore, and the umbrellas ain't got a chance, because Real Quiet's headstone is a gumball machine. Before Real Quiet, there was nothing at all, not in this world or any other. The earth was without form and void, and there was darkness upon the face of the deep. And then came the light, and there was Real Quiet. Then calling the light day and the darkness night, and a firmament in the midst of the waters, and the division of waters from waters, and then the dry land appeared, and Real Quiet called it earth, and then grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Then the waters brought forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life. And no creature has ever moved like Real Quiet, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven, but not like Real Quiet along the backstretch, that last furlong, taking flight. And so have you ever seen a miracle in motion? And so Real Quiet blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters." And then the earth brought forth the living creature, cattle and such. And someday a horse named Real Quiet, because horse is the father of man, and man the father of horse, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and his kind was Real Quiet. And Real Quiet had dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and it was paradise. It was the first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs, and Real Quiet broke from the starting gate dead last, but that was not the end of Real Quiet, because the air was fresh and good to breathe, and the water was clean and good to drink, and Real Quiet took the field down, all 20 overmatched competitors at 1.25 miles going 2 and 2. Yes, there are more than 13 ways of looking at Real Quiet. A man and a woman are one. A man and woman and Real Quiet are one. The river is moving, Real Quiet must be running. It was evening all afternoon. It was quiet, and it was going to quiet. Real Quiet sat in the cedar limbs, and so forth. Real Quiet singing in the dead of night and taking broken wings, and so forth. Yes, Real Quiet's body lies a-mouldering in the grave. He died after a fall in his paddock one June day. And all his life, Real Quiet was only waiting. Thank you.
You may be sitting on a poem. If you are, you may want to refer to it a little bit later. You'll know it. It's got the one word. Can you hear me? Okay. I used to have a friend who was quite a sports fan. Though I had probably never watched a boxing match before, I happened to see Mike Tyson bite off Evander Holyfield's ear in 1997 because I was hanging out with this friend. I'll call him Doug. By the same happenstance, I tuned into the Belmont Stakes of 1998 when a horse named Real Quiet came within 4 inches of winning the first Triple Crown in 20 years. As Real Quiet approached the starting gate at Belmont, all the eyes in the stadium trained on him, and millions more on televisions around the country and even world. But before the hush had fallen, the sportscaster said, "The horse knows nothing, just that he has to go to the gate, jump when it opens, run the race of his life, and make history." "Oh, what doesn't he know?" I asked. "That he's a horse," said Doug. Makes me wonder what I don't know. Real Quiet was the offspring of Really Blue and Quiet American. I grew up with some quiet Americans, going to Quaker school for many years, in which we sat quietly in our classrooms for 15 minutes every day, and in an all-school assembly every Friday. 200 children sat quietly for 45 minutes, observing the Quaker ritual in which there is only speech when someone is moved to speak. I was never so moved. It was nevertheless awesome to be in the presence of 200 silent children, even as a child. Perhaps that training prepared me to hear Cage's famous 4-minute and 33-second composition. I had heard it 10 times over every Friday for years. Or maybe silent meetings prepared me to hear the soundscape of social life. whose sonic effects are musical, but also multiple, recombinatory, and unrelenting. And maybe that soundscape at its generator-on, urban, white noise, staticky, levelist best is the very meaning of real quiet. Real as in reality TV. Realness quiet. Not the mysterious hum that's unaccountably driving people crazy at odd locations around the globe, but the one of the everydayly humdrum just outside the window or door. The one the siren shears into and the jackhammer beats the hell out of. Another case of you don't know what you've got till it's gone. So often, our perception of that quiet is retro-auditory. By contrast, here's the retro-auditory retrieval of sound from Tender is the Night. Intermittently, she caught the gist of his sentences and supplied the rest from her subconscious, as one picks up the striking of a clock in the middle with only the rhythm of the first uncounted strokes lingering in the mind. This is the very picture of Rosemary not listening. She deduces sound from the interval between beats and the sensation of rhythm. She reverses the logic that one picks up the striking of the clock with the stroke. A single shoe drops. Action. Something is afoot. We're in suspense, mid-plot. We're waiting for resolution. There it is. Narrative at its clunkiest. And then the penny drops. Epiphany. I love my friend, but my friend does not love me. More surprising to me, more moving, is Cage's story about going into the anechoic chamber at Harvard, a vacuum of sound. It should have been real quiet in there, true, total, scientific, absolute quiet, material realization of the ideal of quiet. But Cage heard two tones, one high and one low. The high one was Cage's own nervous system, explained the technician later. The low one, his blood circulating. So to be alive is to be in sound, hearing or deaf, given its tactilic register. But so is being dead. You'd have 10 times 10 times the 4-minute, 33-second decomposition. You'd have the sounds of the worms chewing, parasites metabolizing, bacteria ticking, never mind the surround sound. You'd be really blue, too. Real quiet would be a tear in time, an earthquake without visible, physical, earthly manifestation, negation of tangible vibration, implosion to the possibility of reaching across space to others, blank lack of intuition as to music. Real quiet would suck up solar systems for breakfast. No sound would sunder thought, language, bonds like those of friendship that would otherwise endure. The Tao says otherwise. But if there were no such thing as real quiet, then quiet would be an idea, a necessary idea, one called forth by that unrelenting soundscape, or by its unrelentingness. It's impossible not to wonder about its opposite. And yet, quiet and silence are not features of death, that mother of all opposites. If sound and silence are not opposite or identical, as the Tao has it, then perhaps they are related, relatively. They must be kin. I wonder about the relationship between this and this. They're so quiet you can hear not the epiphanic penny dropping, but the index of the relative quiet surrounding the sound. By contrast, if you can barely hear someone shouting, you know you're in a loud environment. As for the horse, he was poorly named. Real quiet had no real chance, both theoretically impossible and to be feared worse than death. His defeat at the Belmont Stakes by literally this much affirmed the reign of affirmed, to this day, the reigning champ since 1978. Maybe Real Quiet knows he lost, and that loss is recorded in his hoofbeat. Maybe that kind of knowledge is voiced in the relative quiet between hoofbeats. See if you can listen for the sound between the hoofbeats. I haven't spoken with my old friend in years. I know I let him down when his father died by not coming back to the country to attend the funeral. His dad knew my dad from the old days, too, those 1950s and 60s. And he had gone to school with my sister in the 70s or 80s, and then we met and hung around for a good bit of the 90s. By the time his father died, I had been living abroad for a long time without hearing from Doug at all. I ran into him once a few years ago when I was back visiting family. We both have kids. Other than that, it's been real quiet between us. What is unsaid is not unheard. The interval is so full of everything left and lost and everyone. What is unsung is not unsung. The moment of not singing is the moment of breath, and thereby conditions everything more audible. Listen to the relative quiet in every fourth measure in this song by Prisoners on a Work Gang. For every 4 hammer strokes, there are 3 measures full of voice and one that is relatively quiet. See if you can hear the loss recorded there.
want no